Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a really rough week. It has been a really rough week. I can't even talk. Just a lot going on. I'm sure you guys know about the winter storm that pretty much gave the greater part of the United States a massive butt whooping, and we are still kind of dealing with that. We were without power, food is pretty scarce, gas is pretty scarce, running water is still a current issue. I had my first shower in like 4 days, so I am like, oh my gosh guys, it's the little things. I swear it's the little things. We have city trucks coming around and giving us some water so we can at least flush our toilets, but I'm not sure how much longer my son and I are going to stay. We might have to leave and go to see some family, so we will have some food and running water. So hopefully we'll have some more news, so we can stay here instead. But if not, at least we have a way out. But anyway, so yeah, this storm is just really, my goodness. I know I'm not the only one affected by it, which brings me to the Bible verse I want to share with you. It comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. And it reads, "The Lord will fight for you, and you have to only be silent." Well, I know I've mentioned before how patience is not something I'm like stellar at, and silence is something I really need to continue working on, because at least I think I'm not the only one. If something's bothering me, I tend to want to voice my whatever it is that's on my mind that's bothering me or making me angry or frustrated or whatever it is. So but anyways, yeah, this storm could make anybody angry and frustrated and worrisome because of the things that it has done to many. But I have to be reminded that I just need to be silent, because God already knows what's going on. He sees it, he knows it. There's no reason for me to regurgitate out of my mouth what he probably doesn't want to hear anyways, because he knows my heart anyways. So that, like I said, what's in my heart, he already knows, doesn't need to come out of my mouth. And so I just need to work on my patience and have more faith in him, to know that he will fight for me. He will fight for you in any situation. It doesn't have to just be a winter storm or a bad breakup or losing your job or whatever. He will fight for you. He will always provide. And the patience aspect I have to work on too is to stand by and wait for it to happen. I know all of us want it to happen on our timing, but that doesn't always mean that it's for the right reason. His way and reasons are the best. Again, boils down to trust in the way that he fights for us, and in his timing that he fights for us. So, all right, guys. So let's get started on this painting, which is going to be a really cute little Wizard of Oz painting. Just kind of, I don't know, walk down memory lane again. Really colorful. And what do you do when you have something that's not going well? You do what you love most, and I certainly love painting. So trying to get my mind off this stuff, I just focus on God, and I focus on the blessings I have around me, which is a canvas, a few paint brushes, and really colorful paints. And bada bing, bada boom, we have a really cute painting to do. So let me go ahead and take you to the table, and let's start to have some fun.
I'm starting my project using a T-ruler to divide my canvas in quadrants to help you scale your drawing. Here I begin by drawing in Dorothy's legs, which will be in the left 2 quadrants, which might be kind of hard to see at first, but you'll see when I draw my lines in darker later. Take note her shoes are in the lower left quadrant and come up about halfway of that quadrant. The outer foot spills into the lower right quadrant by about a couple of inches or so, and her socks should come up to about just under the halfway point of the canvas. I realized I made her have some pretty bad cankles, so I had to quickly fix her shape. Now I'm sketching in the yellow brick road, which starts in the middle of her socks and goes into the lower right quadrant just about to the halfway point. The top part of the landscaping comes up to about the halfway point of the upper quadrants, and there you'll see I draw an emerald city in the middle of the upper right quadrant. Just make tall and skinny bumps with random heights to get its shape. After I've made all my tweaks, I go ahead and draw my lines in darker so they'll stand out more when I paint. But don't forget you can change anything about your painting at any time. That's why we are blessed with erasers and extra paint to cover any mistakes or areas you decide to make any changes. Starting with the sky, I use my number 10 flat shader brush, filling it in with the color pale blue, which I'm going to need a few coats because it's not an opaque color. Plus it's a craft paint, so naturally it's a little thinner. Now I'm ready to paint in my rainbow, so for that I'm going to use my number 6 filbert brush and have an assortment of Arteza student grade iridescent rainbow colors. They came in a box of 10, which also includes white and black, and I'll be sure to include where I got them in the description. As you can see, I'm not trying to be too careful here. I'm just getting a general idea where I want it and how thick I want the colors. I'll clean up my lines after I finished it, but notice I'm painting it through Emerald City. It's because I'll paint that in later, which will make it look like the rainbow is behind it. So here I've cleaned up my lines and I'm getting ready to move on to Dorothy. For her legs, I'm using my 1-inch tip flat brush or wash brush, filling them in with the color Flesh Tan. Back to my number 10 flat shader brush, and I'm using pale blue again for her socks. Take note, I'm trying not to make her sock line perfectly even. These two will need a few coats just like her legs did. Still working those socks. I now use a shade just a tidbit darker, which is lake blue, so the fold of her socks will be more noticeable. Again, I'm trying not to make those perfectly straight or even either. Now for the sock trim details, I just use the edge of my brush and sort of stamp in the threading in a vertical fashion. I also add some more lake blue on the top portion of her socks to add some shading. As I was painting her socks, I kept looking at her legs, thinking to myself I wasn't happy, that something was missing, and it was just too plain for me, so I went back to add more flesh tan mixed with vanilla to give some highlights to her skin tone. Okay, onto those famous ruby slippers. I switched back to my number 10 flat shader brush using the color metallic red because, hello, we want those babies to stand out. Here I'm finishing a third coat actually because this is a semi-transparent paint. I'm also ensuring it's wet because I'm about to add an iridescent black for shadowing using my 1/4 inch tip deer foot brush, just gently stamping the color in along with more metallic red so it blends nicely. I quickly switched to my number 6 filbert brush so I can paint in the shadow line of her shoes, also using a combination of the iridescent black and metallic red. Back to my number 10 flat shader brush, I now cover her ruby slippers and add a generous layer of crystal glitter paint to help bring out the bling in her shoes. For the underneath of her shoes, I paint them in with an iridescent black followed by a thin layer of metallic red for some highlights. Now, if you thought I was done with the bling on her shoes, you were wrong. So now I'm using my number 0 round brush and creating illuminating sparkles with the color Pearl White. You'll see I make a combination of X's followed by dots. Now onto Emerald City, I use my number 9 filbert brush and fill it in with metallic festive green. After all, it needs to stand out as well. When that's filled in, I switch to my number 1 round brush and create more architectural features using another metallic green called Pearl Green. To finish it off, I use the back end of my paintbrush and stamp in some sparkles using the color Pearl White. Take note, some sparkles are smaller than others. For the landscaping, I use my number 12 filbert brush and fill it in with the color Kelly Green. After I fill that in, I add some vanilla for highlights, but make sure your Kelly Green is still wet so your paint blends nicely. You'll see that I've added some hunter green as well, but you can make your landscaping however you want it. You can use some colors, different colors, more colors, less colors, no hills, less hills. It doesn't matter. It's however you like it or what's easier for you. Now onto the yellow brick road, I switch brushes again to my 1-inch tip flat brush or wash brush and fill it in with the color bright yellow. For more narrow parts, I use my medium angle brush followed by my number 1 round brush to get that hard to reach area leading into Emerald City. For the brick lines, I take a ruler and paint in the grout using a slightly darker shade, which is Empire Gold, with my number 8 flat shader brush. For the last part of the landscaping, I go back to my number 12 filbert brush and fill it in with orange spice. When that's filled in, I make sure my paint is still wet so I can stamp in highlights using my 1/4 inch deer foot brush with the color vanilla. You'll notice before I do that, I briefly use my number 1 round brush again to get those tight spots. Well, I couldn't leave the painting without some sort of flowers. The way I remember in the movie is there's countless flowers everywhere along their way to Emerald City that borders the yellow brick road, but I'm just going to keep it simple here and only add a few. To do that, I use a Mandala dotting tool and stamp them in using more Arteza iridescent paint colors along with some vanilla and metallic blue. Okay, here it is. Check out these metallic paints up close and how they bring more pizzazz into your work. At least I think so. Well, that concludes this video, and I really do have to emphasize that there is no place like home. We may be a military family on the go every 3 to 4 years, at least for the next 7 years, but home is where your heart is. And I don't know about you, but I love how colorful this piece is. I think now my only struggle is to figure out what kind of frame I want to put it in. At least I'll know it'll go great next to some Kansas State flowers, which is the sunflower, and we all know that's where Dorothy's from. Okie dokie, if you liked the tutorial, please be sure to not only share it, but to also hit like and to subscribe for more videos. Also, don't forget to turn on the notification button to be alerted when a new video comes out. But more importantly, remember to thank God for this opportunity and always paint from the soul.